I mean, I think we look at the campaign trail. He said 10 to 20% on everyone. That's what we're looking at, right? I think that's what we can expect for the next 3.5 years. He said tariffs of 60 to 100% on China. I think that's what we're looking at. So I don't think we'll be at 125%, but I think we are going to be above the 25% from Trump 1.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop, It's Time to Become a Coffee Consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 3 of an awesome 5-part series with Mollie Sitkowski. We are talking about the Trump tariffs and their impact on the global coffee industry. In this episode, we're talking about the implications of these tariffs on businesses that are doing business with the United States. In the last episode, we talked about businesses that are inside the United States. Now we're talking about the companies that are exporting to the United States. So, Mollie, my question here, what I want to start with is, what are the options that we see for businesses that are doing business with the United States right now? Like, what is the expectation, I guess? Business as usual? Are we expecting that trade will go in different directions? What do we expect will be the implications?
I mean, a lot of US companies are kind of working with their suppliers on reviewing the 3 things that I talked about.
Yeah.
What is it? Although that's kind of less important unless we can get it aluminum. And if it's coming out of China, how much is it worth? So we have a special rule in the United States called first sale. So if there's a middleman in the transaction, there's a manufacturer, middleman, and then the sale to the U.S. importer. If you meet certain requirements, you can use that first manufacturer to middleman value, which is unlike the rest of the world.
Okay.
And then the third option is looking at country of origin. We do have really weird country of origin rules here that are unlike the rest of the world. And there is a lot of gray area. And so, a lot of European companies, a lot of Asian companies, they don't really understand our rules, and they have been just using their own rules. And a lot of US companies don't know that. And so there might be some wiggle room, especially if the 90-day pause goes away. And there are different tariffs depending on what country you're importing from. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Or if people are moving manufacturing out of China, there's a lot of questions as, are you doing enough in your moving manufacturing to make sure that it's not Chinese origin anymore?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about country of origin, if we can. And folks, just a reminder, a blanket reminder for the entire series. Nothing that we talk about here is legal advice or business advice. If we do not know the specifics of your business, if you do want legal advice on these specific subjects, Mollie's contact details will be in the show notes. So that's the direction that you can go in. Again, there's no financial arrangement between Map It Forward and Faegre Drinker at all.
I do take free coffee, though, at any time.
We can make that happen 100%. So talk to us about country of origin, because I've been hearing and listening to a lot of podcasts where businesses are saying that they're trying to figure out how they can perhaps have part of their stuff manufactured in China and then taken to other countries, assembled there. They change the tags, blah, blah, blah. Talk to me. What does country of origin mean?
In the United States, it has almost virtually no meaning. Um,
I
so
love it.
So it means
What could
the
go wrong?
country of, right. The country of origin is the country in which the parts and components had a change in name, character, or use, were substantially transformed into the article that they were imported.
Okay,
What is that?
that's
That
it.
means nothing.
What the
Right.
fuck does that mean anyway?
I- So the
Okay.
rest of the world uses like a tariff shift rule, which means it shifted from one tariff classification to another. Very
Okay.
clear. Or they use like a regional value content, which is like they imported components, their manufacturing operations added 30% value to the good, and then that becomes the country of origin. Those are like the two common rules. We don't care about either of those things. And so what customs looks at is like, okay, what percentage of components comes from one country? What was the manufacturing operations? How substantial were they? Like, was it an IKEA assembly where you just like screwed things in?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it like you had to like weld things, right? They look at what if you had like four sub-assemblies and you just glued them together. Or if it's like it's a motor where the rotor and stator from just one country and you put them together. So they look at the essence or they look at value. They kind of use whatever they can to find its Chinese origin.
Okay. So I have a question here. A
Hmm.
hypothetical. So I have a coffee grinder.
Hmm.
The burrs, that's the blade, the things that cut up the coffee, let's just
Hmm.
say, that crush the coffee, they're made in Germany.
Hmm.
The casing is made in Vietnam,
Hmm.
and the rest of it is made in China, and it's
Hmm.
assembled in, let's say, Bangladesh.
Hmm. The motor is from China.
The motor's from China.
I mean, not 100%, but I would probably say customs would be like, people are relying on the motor to grind the coffee. So
And so if we could just dig down into that. So it comes, let's say it gets shipped from Bangladesh. Whose responsibility is it to help customs understand
it,
all of those
it's
parts?
it's the US importer.
Okay. So if the
So
US importer turns around and says everything came from Bangladesh, they pay 10%.
mhm.
And do they have to prove that 100% of those parts came from Bangladesh? Who's going to check that the motor came from China?
If customs issues a request for information and they ask for a bill of materials in the assembly process, customs also has offices in a lot of countries around China where they go and look at the manufacturing facilities randomly.
Okay. Is that a Trump thing, or was that a Biden thing, or is that
That was
a
a
long
Trump.
term?
That was a Trump.
Of
I
course,
mean,
Trump
they
1.0.
they were there. Yeah, they were there before, but they got real aggressive under
Okay.
Trump 1.0.
Okay. So what we're hearing basically en masse in all the financial media is that manufacturing is shut down in particularly most of China. Shipping has stopped. This is to the US
Mhm.
from China. We're hearing that coffee going into the United States from a lot of origin countries, they're holding back sending it now, and they're waiting for this 90 days to be over before they can understand what's going on. I mean, what could go wrong, what, right? Like, this is not going to create any problems at all. Um, Again, like, it seems that the word of all of this is uncertainty, and the impact of that uncertainty is the dreaded word, which is stagnation.
Mhm.
Is that what we're starting to see a lot of happening from what you're observing?
Yeah, I think so. So many people are like, they imported so much before January 20th. And so they're just declining their inventory, like decreasing
Hmm.
it in the United States, and they're waiting. And I feel like people are expecting things to go down. I think China will go down, but it's not going to go down that much.
So what do you think happens from so today again, April 22nd?
Mhm.
How does it progress from now? We're not even like 20 days into these tariffs, right?
Right. I mean, I think we look at the campaign trail. He said 10 to 20% on everyone. That's what we're looking at, right? I think that's what we can expect for the next 3.5 years. He said tariffs of 60 to 100% on China. I think that's what we're looking at. So I don't think we'll be at 125%, but I think we are going to be above the 25% from Trump 1.
Wow. Like the implications to the hospitality industry are huge with regards to packaging, with regards to equipment, with regards to merchandise, with regards to a lot of the tools that we sell, brewing equipment. The consumer is going to, and we'll talk about the consumer in the next episode, the implications throughout the entire hospitality industry, not just coffee, is going to be huge. But
Mm.
if going back to what you were saying about manufacturing, if let's say he's trying to get manufacturing to happen in the United States, from my understanding, a lot of the manufacturing equipment is produced in China. So creating the actual factories, she's nodding for those who are listening. Again, what could go wrong? I mean, this is going to be smooth sailing.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we need to be focusing on? If we're a business outside, this is a global podcast. And
Mhm.
so what are some of the things that businesses that are doing business with America should be thinking about?
Your customers are probably going to be trying to work with you on discounts and whether those are legal for US customs purposes. You guys need to be figuring out. While you are not going to be held liable for that, probably. Customs can reach beyond, but they usually don't. Um, your customer may be, so you do want to comply with US customs law, even though you're not
Hmm.
the importer. You're going to want to be cognizant of the fact that US customs has different origin rules, which we talked about.
Hmm.
And you're going to want to be thinking about, just kind of different shipping arrangements, like can you drop ship to customers outside the United States for your customers? So if they were using US to consolidate shipments to Canada and Mexico, maybe
Hmm.
they now want you to drop ship to Mexico and Canada instead of consolidating things in the United States. That's
Right.
something
For people
also
who
that.
don't know what drop shipping is, what that means is that if you're in the United States, you have someone manufacturing in China and your customer is in Australia, instead of having that product come into the United States and then you ship from the United States back to Australia, you get it sent directly from China to Australia. So my question there is that at the moment is not being tariffed because it doesn't touch. Uh, okay, so going back to what we were talking about in the last episode, then it looks like American businesses are going to do less business in America.
I mean, yeah, there are certain rules that make it easier to not do business in America, even for US manufacturing,
Wait,
because the
doesn't that sound kind of antithetical to what he's trying to achieve?
yes, because parts and components are tariffed, it's easier to import Chinese parts and components into Mexico and manufacture them into a Mexican good and import them into the United States than to pay 170% tariffs on parts and components to manufacture them in the United States.
Okay. I spend a lot of my time trying to understand why. And maybe that's my problem.
Now, and I tell people, you have to take your logic hat off.
Okay.
There's no,
Stop trying to make sense of something that doesn't
yeah,
make sense. I
mm-mm.
feel like we're missing a whole bunch of I keep looking
For a reason.
for a
No.
reason, and people keep telling me like, Lee, and this is a real thing. People keep saying to me, Lee, you just don't understand. Trump is playing the long game. And you know, I am a business advisor. And so I have seen that strategy before. We're playing the long game. I'm somebody who plays the long game myself. But I can see very clear milestones and logical progressive points along the way. I don't understand what the fuck this guy's doing.
Okay, I was going to ask you, maybe we need to have a separate conversation about what the long game is.
I don't understand anything about this. I'm about to see my industry in the United States be decimated. And I had a business in the United States for a really long time, as well as this business was in the United States for a really long time. I lived there for ages. And all I can think about is if my business was based there now, I got most of my goods imported because they were not manufactured in the United States.
Yeah.
What would happen? I would have to go out of business.
I will say during the initial round of Trump tariffs, his stated goal was to move manufacturing out of China. And a lot of people did, which is now harming them because of the reciprocal tariffs. But that was his goal, and people listened. And he came up with an exclusion process where if you could not get it outside China, or if you were using it in U.S. manufacturing, there was an opportunity to request an exclusion. It was time limited, but there was an opportunity to request an exclusion. So I am slightly hopeful that maybe that could happen here.
Okay. There's a little bit of hope. Going back to these reciprocal tariffs that you're talking about, Vietnam is the second largest producer of coffee in the world. And they have 46% reciprocal tariffs.
They were also the biggest beneficiary of manufacturing of machinery.
Right.
After China.
Leaving China. Right. And there was a lot of like merchandise and packaging that magically shifted to Vietnam from China. Is the point, if I understand it correctly, he's trying to ex-nay that as well?
Yeah. Well, he tried to at the end of his last administration. He was going to initiate a 232 investigation, which is the aluminum and steel investigation,
right,
for Vietnamese currency manipulation at the end of its last administration.
So a lot of the instant coffee that Americans drink is made. We won't judge him. We'll just change him. That's my philosophy.
Some people like it. Some people like it. Good for you.
We listen and we don't judge. But a lot of that is produced in countries like Vietnam and in India. So, I mean, a lot of these big companies are going to be looking at, and none of that can be done in America. So if lobbying doesn't happen, we could be looking at almost 50% increase in the cost of instant coffee, at least. Okay. I mean, no matter how I ask the question, it's still going to be the same thing. It doesn't change. And one other thing, is there a chance that these tariffs go up? Like, is there a chance that he turns around and says, fuck it, we're going to put the tariffs up on India?
So yeah, if they retaliate, which is what happened with China.
Right.
Because initially China was 34%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they went up
25 and then went up. So Japan walks away now, and they've said we will not negotiate with America, from what I understand. So I want to ask, is it too strong a language to say that this is a full-blown trade war now?
With Japan?
Globally.
Oh.
So it's definitely with China, right?
No.
This is a proper trade war.
Well, I don't know if we have a definition of trade war. But,
okay.
I mean, we're definitely in violation of
If it looks like a
WTO.
pig and squeaks like a pig. Right. Okay. So So if if Japan says no, is he likely to turn around and say, okay, we're putting tariffs up?
I think he wouldn't do it unless they have retaliation against us,
Okay,
like
so
increase their tariffs
we
against us.
expect, okay, if they increase tariffs against America, so that's the other
Mhm.
side of this that we haven't talked about. So if countries retaliate and put up the tariffs against America, America's going to say, fuck you too.
Right, which is what they did to China.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I'm starting to understand that actually a lot of this, I feel like he's in perimenopause and we have to go with his. I say that as a woman
And
who
he
is in
needs some
perimenopause.
HRT.
And he needs
I
some
can send him mine.
HRT.
Give him a link to Winona.
Again, we laugh because otherwise we would cry. All right. Folks, join us in the next episode where we're going to talk about the impact of all of this stuff on the consumer in the United States in the short term, the medium term, and the long term. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.